So good evening, and everyone, welcome to What Did I Do with My Degree, presented by the CUNY School of Public Health, Office of Career Services. My name is Dionne, and I'm currently a student at the CUNY School of Public Health, getting my master's in environmental and occupational health. And I'm also joined by our co-moderator this evening, Sarah, who will be engaging with you all in the chat. So tonight we will hear from public health professionals who are CUNY School of Public Health alumni and hold a Master's of Public Health or Master's of Science degree in Environmental and Occupational Health Sciences. They will speak to us about their professional experiences and share valuable tips and takeaways. Before we begin the panel, I just want to give a brief description of both degree programs. The MPH in Environmental and Occupational Health Sciences program prepares students to recognize, analyze, and control environmental and occupational threats to health in a scientific framework. The MS in Environmental Occupational Health Sciences programs prepare students for careers in the growing field of industrial hygiene. For more information on this degree program and others offered by CUNY SPH, you can visit the link that Sarah will share in the chat. And so tonight's panel will include moderated questions for our panelists and a Q&A segment where the panelists will get to hear from you all directly. And as a reminder, you are able to visit other breakout rooms at any time. And until we reach the Q&A segment, please just use the chat for questions and comments. And now we are going to hear from our panelists. So good evening, all panelists. I'm excited to speak with you all tonight, and I look forward to hearing about your experiences as a CUNY SPH alumni and public health professional. To get started, will each of you introduce yourselves to the audience, starting with Carlos?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, awesome. So obviously my name is Carlos. I graduated back in 2019. Wow, that was a long time ago. So yeah, about 6 years ago, from the CUNY School of Public Health. Ever since then, I've been working obviously in the fields. More recently, right now, I'm currently working in Verizon as an environmental health and safety regional, overseeing the state of New Jersey. Been doing that for the last 47 days. Who's counting? Prior to that, I used to work with Amazon in the similar field between New Jersey and in New York City.
Okay.
But yep, thank you.
Thank you for that, and congratulations on your fairly new position.
Yes, thanks.
Um, and can we hear from Elizabeth?
Hi everyone, my name's Elizabeth Pasnik. I just graduated actually in June of 2025 with my MPH in environmental and occupational health. And I currently work for the New York State Department of Transportation as a principal engineering technician. And I was in that role prior to school and throughout school. And I am in the process of transitioning to an environmental specialist role in the next few months. But yeah, that's me. I previously worked in construction, doing both quality control engineering and occupational health and safety work. So I have a bit of overlap and experience there as well. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you for that, Elizabeth. Can we hear from Emily next?
Hi there. I'm Emily Spokowski. I actually have Carlos beat. I graduated in 2017 with an MPH. I am also fairly new to my current position. I work as a senior project manager for the New York City Mayor's Office of Environmental Coordination. That's a little bit of a mouthful, but basically, I oversee New York City's environmental review process. As most people here, I think, are in the middle of their MPH or MS. if you recall taking the class where they talked about NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act, which requires agencies to evaluate the environmental impacts of major actions before making decisions. I do the New York City version of that. Both New York State and New York City have codified more stringent versions of NEPA. And before this, I've had a long, twisting career, kind of all related to environmental compliance in one way or another. I also started out doing industrial hygiene and occupational health and safety. I also did a lot of insurance, environmental pollution claims, and worked at DEP as environmental health and safety auditor.
Thank you so much for that. Can we hear from Mike next?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Mike Ierardi. I graduated from the MS program in industrial hygiene in 2020. Currently, I'm a third year PhD student in the department at CUNY SPH, full time as of June of this year. I'm working with Dr. Pavlonis on research related to nail salon exposures and have worked a little bit with Elizabeth on that as well as some climate change related occupational exposure research. Prior to kind of becoming a full-time student again in June, I have an 11-year career in consulting. So I've worked for a couple of different consulting firms, primarily on projects related to human health risk assessment and industrial hygiene for a variety of clients in the oil and gas sector, as well as manufacturing industries, pharmaceutical, and through the pandemic, even the entertainment industry. So some health and safety in the production world.
Yes, thank you for that. And thank you all for introducing yourselves. And we're going to proceed with a few of the moderated questions. So just opening this question to all panelists, why did you choose to pursue a graduate degree in environmental health? Anyone can go first.
I'll go. Oh, I'll go, and then whoever can follow by. So the reason I took is I took an OSHA. It was like an OSHA EHS class in undergrad. At that point, I didn't know what I wanted to do, so it was an elective that I just chose. I was like, okay, let me take it. But then after obviously started going to the courses and doing the coursework, it was actually pretty insightful. And I enjoyed the combining the math portion with also like the it was a mix of math and science, right? So that was helpful for me. And then the public health side, obviously, and the environmental, like helping out the workers, in whatever job sites I would work in. So it was a nice mix of different things, for me. And then obviously the other thing to that part was the professor I had. So it was, Professor Grassman, who's actually, I don't know if she's still in the CUNY School of Public Health, but she used to be in Brooklyn College. And then she was very good and like was like the good at presenting the coursework and all that. So it was a combination of all those things for me.
I can go. I got my undergraduate degree in environmental science. And no shade, but I knew I didn't want to stay in consulting for industrial hygiene or EHS, but I knew I wanted to stay in the environmental sector. And just generally, public health is like so interesting. When you, I guess, think about it, really all aspects of society can relate back to public health in one way or another. So yeah, just my general interest led me to the School of Public Health. And initially I started while I was a consultant, just trying to start a class to see, what else is out there.
I can go next. So while I was an undergrad, I had originally had an interest in pursuing medical school. And as I was taking more and more classes, I kind of ultimately fell in love with environmental health. I definitely was on more of the mindset of prevention versus kind of the treatment side of medical and health issues. And I really liked the learning about the intersection of chemical exposures and human health. So after my undergrad, I actually stayed an extra year at my school to finish I have another master's in just environmental health as kind of like um, a broad degree in that topic. And then started to work at the first consulting firm and got more and more experience with others who had kind of specialized in either occupational epidemiology, toxicology, or industrial hygiene. So spent a couple of years kind of learning about all of those disciplines and ultimately decided on that industrial hygiene was for me. And so that's when I found CUNY SPH and took more of the nitty-gritty IH courses here, and have really just enjoyed kind of the occupational health and safety research part of this field.
I can round out the responses here. So I was fully in engineering. I have a civil engineering background and went into construction not knowing how much of an intersection there is with engineering and occupational health and safety. And I personally found that although I really wasn't liking the engineering side of my job, I really was interested in the health and safety aspect of workers' rights and everything, and protection from exposures. So I was kind of at a low point, not really knowing where to go. And I ended up speaking with a career counselor and a mentor from my undergraduate institution. And after that, we kind of came to an agreement that I should go back to school for public health, just because of my interest with sustainability and kind of I was interested in using my technical skills in terms of softwares and knowledge, and kind of helping out with the evolving planet. As we all know, that it's a little scary, but I thought that if there's anything I can do to help, that this degree would really give me the skill set that I didn't have yet, given that I had more of an engineering focus. So I thought that after looking at a few different schools, CUNY SPH really checked a lot of my boxes in terms of smaller class size, individualized attention, the kind of the whole grand view of the school I thought was really awesome. So yeah, I thought it was an opportunity for me to study something that I'm passionate about, but I knew I needed more background in, which is why I ended up going with that MPH, so I could contribute to society ultimately in a more positive way than I was with just building random things with engineering. So yeah.
That's wonderful. Thank you for that, guys. So I have a couple questions for Carlos specifically. How soon before or after graduating did you start your job search? How did you come across career possibilities related to your How did you come across career possibilities related to your degree skill sets? And then also, what strategies did you use for your job search? I can repeat each question if you want me to, but
No,
those are
no,
good questions.
you're good. I got the gist of it. I was actually thinking about that earlier today. I don't recall. I remember it was a few months before I was about to graduate. So I was talking to my classmates like what they're doing about it or what they currently work in because I was working full time, but it wasn't in the field of what I'm doing, right? So I used to work as a surgery coordinator for a hospital in Brooklyn. And that was scheduling medical students for the general surgery rotations, which was cool, right? It gave me insight behind the scenes per se, but it wasn't what I wanted to do in the long term. So I also spoke to some doctors, and made networking connections with them and see um, what they like if they knew anyone in the HS field. But I started just looking online in Indeed, and then think the CUNY School of Public Health also had like a job posting. Um, website back then. So it was a little bit of that. Speaking of people, speaking of classmates, going to Google, going to LinkedIn. I don't know if I had made one by then, but it was a little of that. And then one of my classmates actually mentioned that they had an interview with Amazon. And I was like, oh, really? Like, I never thought of Amazon in that. Like, I just thought about it back then as, oh, I got a package from them. But I didn't think about the safety aspect. So once one of my classmates told me, I went online and I saw that they had different programs on their EHS. So then I was able to apply for that. And I actually got an interview like 2 weeks before the pandemic started. So it was interesting times. And eventually that's how I started my role in the field I wanted to after college and right at the start of COVID, which was interesting, challenging, and also an experience for myself.
Thank you for that. The next set of questions are from Mike. What advice can you give students seeking the professional experience required for the certified industrial hygienist credential, and what are the benefits of obtaining that certification?
Um, yeah, so I think really starting to think about and preparing for that CIH credential early is the key. There's set requirements for coursework that CUNY SPH offers and professional training that you need to have to even apply for the exam. So definitely, if you're interested, like look those up early and really plan how you're going to fulfill each of those requirements early on, and then also document ways in which you've already achieved certain requirements. So you might have certain coursework already from undergrad or another master's program that could be applied to it. And then studying itself can take like 6 to 8 months or longer. So definitely kind of building in all of that time. I would just try to seek as much IH experience as you can in kind of broad areas. The exam is quite comprehensive, so it'll cover everything from ventilation to ergonomics, chemical exposure assessment, and then even other disciplines like toxicology and epidemiology, some basics there. So definitely kind of again seeing what those requirements are for the test, what topic areas are covered, and then making sure that you're taking those classes and trying to just get as broad of an professional experience as you can. And then also just engaging with organizations like the American Industrial Hygiene Association. They have both national and local sections. So just by building your network, I think that really helps to kind of not only to learn new topic areas or kind of brush up on different topic areas in IH, but also build your network in terms of different professional and job opportunities. And then the organization itself also makes available different training resources, CIH prep workshops, things like that. So it's definitely a great resource to tap into.
Thank you for that. And now the next couple of questions are for Elizabeth. How does your background in civil engineering translate to your current role, and how do you bridge any gaps in knowledge or experience?
Yeah, so I would say any background in engineering translates to most roles, just given its roots in problem solving. And a lot of times this is required while you're in a occupational consulting role, or currently I'm in an environmental analysis role. And so figuring out how we're going to minimize impacts, has roots in problem solving just as engineering does. And I'm currently still in a civil and transportation engineering space. So I guess the engineering mindset, is really big, not only in my current role in environmental analysis, but also in any role for any company that I would go to. And the second part of the question, bridging gaps in knowledge or experience, I find it's really important to reach out to other coworkers or supervisors and see if there's any training available. As Mike mentioned, there's usually a lot of resources at wherever you're at, whether that be a club that you're in, a part of, or your workplace. And just asking to be included in those trainings to make sure that your skill set is constantly growing. And in addition, having a great network, as Carlos mentioned, and reaching out to people, kind of seeing where everyone's, if someone has a skill set that you might not, but you need to complete a task, that might be awesome to not only kind of gain a new mentor, but also to, bridge that gap between something that you may have never, know the skill, but you've never applied the skill. So that's what I would say I try to do day to day at my job.
Thank you for that. And Emily, so what has stood out to you most about working in the public health systems in New York City, either in a good way or a challenging way? And how has this experience shaped the way you approach your work?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I oversee environmental review for major projects for New York City. Right now, I'm working on the Brooklyn Marine Terminal project, which is this massive redevelopment of parts of Red Hook and Cobble Hill. So it's really interesting. There's about 20 different program areas that we evaluate environmental impacts for. And so it's not just, air pollution or noise levels or vibration, typical stuff that you think of with environmental review, but it also takes into account, if we have X many tenants moving into this area, will there be enough seats in the local schools? How will traffic be impacted? Will it cast a shadow on a local public park? So it's really fascinating how many things that any one single action can impact, and you have to consider all these different areas that you might not have thought about otherwise. So something which can be frustrating, but is also really great, is that we have to do so much collaboration with different city agencies and private partners, sometimes state or federal agencies as well. And the Seeker and NEPA. Seeker is the City Environmental Quality Review, which is the local version of NEPA. So that involves required public meetings so we can hear community input. So it can be overwhelming, and slow of the typical bureaucracy. But it's really interesting, and you can't make everyone happy, but hopefully making people, coming to the best compromise and figuring out how to mitigate anything before it even happens.
Thank you for that. Now I have a question to open it up to all the panelists. What job search tips do you have for those currently seeking employment in public health?
I can take that one. For people looking for New York City roles, I highly recommend looking at the civil service exams. Every single month, they release a new list of exams coming up. Most positions to work for the city, you need to have passed one of these, which is pretty tough. If you don't have it, you could be a great fit. You just need that title. And they take a long time to process you. So you really should be checking every month just to see what's available, what fits your schedule. I mean, your resume. One title that is perfectly fit for students from SPH is that is a city research scientist position, which is what I am. You don't need to pass an exam for that, but it requires a master's degree, and one of them is in public health. So it's like the perfect fit of a city job for graduates of this program. Um, my other tips were like it is a struggle. I've struggled really badly myself, but I think if you need experience, you're lacking that. Um, you could go on another New York City website. We have a volunteering website called New York City Service, which has a ton of volunteer opportunities, and they're so interesting. Like they're really varied, and there's more stuff than you'd think that would give you some applicable job experience. Like right now, I'm helping develop educational, like elementary school curriculum about Earth Day with the Department of City Records. Um, and then my last tip is to create an online portfolio. Like if you have any, like if you want to do data analytics or like show your skills with, the environmental consulting class, like you can put your work on like your own personal website or a GitHub page and like use that on your resume to show people like this is my work product and like this is something I can talk about and like here's experience, even if you don't have that job experience.
I also have a bit of a suggestion as well. So I currently technically don't really work in a public health space. I'm in a transportation engineering agency for New York State. And I've personally found, obviously, as we all know, the job market's a little tough right now. So I just graduated, and I personally, rather than looking for an entirely um, new company, new position, I decided to look internally within my agency, but also within New York State to see if there was anything that I could potentially transfer to. And I decided that I was going just to stay where I was. I recently moved across the state back to Buffalo, where I'm from. So I wanted to keep a bit of continuity. So what I would say is if you're currently working or interning somewhere, to kind of ask around, see if given your new skill set with all these courses you're taking and softwares you're learning, if they have any roles, or if not, if your manager could assign you any tasks that would build up your skill set. So then when you are maybe applying to your dream company or kind of a role that you are really excited about, that then you can utilize the skills that you're asking for and advocating for yourself to be included in, and use those to really market yourself, so that you have an ideal role in the future. That's what I'm currently doing, and it's been successful. Ultimately, you're your own biggest cheerleader, so you kind of really have to put yourself out there, and to your bosses and your coworkers. And like I picked up some GIS tasks at work that were previously assigned to other people, and so yeah, I would say make sure that you're constantly putting yourself out there, and saying that you're able to fill these roles and gain skills. So that's what I'd say.
Yeah, and then just to build off a little bit of both kind of points that Elizabeth and Emily both mentioned, one kind of uh, thing that I've been doing is trying not to let kind of others make the decision for me about like what I do and don't apply to. And I mean that in the sense of kind of the job postings and requirements. So to Emily's point about if you don't have experience, but at the position is asking for a certain amount of experience and you're able to demonstrate that through different project work or academic research projects, things like that, that it could potentially qualify for kind of the experience. Writing that in your cover letter and kind of making that case, and putting yourself out there, and submitting an application, even if you might not check off every single box as explicitly stated on a job posting. So again, trying to not make that decision for the recruiter or hiring manager, just putting your application out there and being that cheerleader advocate for yourself that Elizabeth mentioned.
Okay, thank you for that. So I do have a couple more questions. It's open to any panelist that wants to answer. Um, how has your career evolved since finishing your graduate degree?
I have a response for this one. Um, my career evolved even while I was getting my degree. When I had started the program when I was working in environmental consulting, and one of the reasons my resume stood out when I was hired to work as an internal auditor for EHS at DEP was that my boss had the same exact degree back before it was School of Public Health. It was through Hunter College. So he had gone through the exact same program. And something I realized when I was at SPH was that, at least back in the mid teens, like half my classmates were at DEP or MTA or some other local city agency. Um, and and then as for after I graduated, as I mentioned earlier, the city research scientist requires a graduate degree and specifically mentions a master's in public health. Um, and then lastly, like my capstone was kind of atypical compared to the normal way. For my capstone project, I assisted an attorney with an open legal case to gain compensation for former industrial plant workers at GE capacitor manufacturing plants upstate, which is what polluted the Hudson with all the PCBs. They cleaned up the Hudson, but they never compensated the workers. So I think choosing like a like an applicable capstone that, and as I mentioned earlier, like I'm not really into the, I like being in the field, but I'm not really a field work person. I don't want to be doing the science per se. I like implementing the science. Um, and it was just so cool doing all the fact finding for that, like reviewing medical reports, reviewing legal documents, reviewing old scientific reports from the 1970s, going through newspaper articles. I think that gave me a lot of research skills, which I then, in all my jobs since then, like as working in the insurance industry as a environmental claims analyst, like you kind of had to pull those skills of combing through all available records and finding what's necessary. So I am grateful to my MPH for all of that.
Thank you. I'm gonna move on to the next question. Anyone can answer. What student opportunities or resources did you take advantage of at CUNY SPH? So any volunteering, any student employment opportunities or faculty research? Did anyone take part in that?
I can speak on that a bit. So when I first started at SPH, I was a part of the Career Skills Academy, which I really highly recommend everyone participate in if you're a current student or if you're thinking about coming into SPH as a graduate student. I thought it was really invaluable, all of the workshops and master classes that the Office of Career Services had to offer through that program. You're really able to kind of get a great portfolio going in terms of really focused help with resume, cover letters. They have a headshot session. So I thought that was really an awesome program that SPH has going for it, and I highly recommend everyone check it out. And as Mike mentioned, both he and I had done student research at SPH, and I think that's a really awesome outlet, not only to connect with other students, like Mike is a doctoral student and I was a graduate student. We probably would have not met had it not been for this research, but I'm glad we did. And also really getting connections with professors. I think it's an awesome way to kind of gain a mentor and have someone that's advocating for you throughout. And one last really quick thing, Dionne, I know we have to move it along, but I also attended the Pride Parade, the NYC Pride Parade with CUNY as a whole, but there's a few of us from one of my in-person classes at SPH, and we had just the best time. And I know they're starting a Pride group at the school, so I'd highly recommend everyone check that out as well, because they're getting started, and I think it's a great group of people that I really enjoyed spending my time with when I was in New York for the past 2 years. So that's what I would recommend. Get involved.
Thank you for that. And what, anyone can answer this, but what is the most rewarding part of your job?
I can answer that. So for me, um, so I have two roles after graduating in the EHS. For me, it's working with not only people from different backgrounds, but actually like the workers, the people that do the everyday jobs. So like in Amazon, the people that move the boxes and all that. That was very rewarding because they had a lot of insight. It wasn't always the professionals per se that had the best idea, right? It was the people that were on the floor doing the work, daily work, that had good ideas and actually made my job easier. They would call out hazards for us. They would recommend things. There were people from that just it was their first job. There was people that had retired as an engineer and just wanted to work part-time. So there was different skill sets on this on the floors that was very rewarding for me, allowed me to get to know people, make connections with them also. And like I said, made my job easier. There was a few times where a few individuals suggested engineering solutions, like there was one individual that he went home, did a 3D print model of what he was suggesting to our engineers for a conveyor belt. He actually implemented and went to like meet our safety director and operations and all that. So that was really insightful for me and just showed that you don't need a degree to like, especially in safety where it's a lot of problem solving skills. You don't need a degree to do some of these things that we have that each has. I'm not saying don't get it, but I'm just saying that it was cool to see that. I'm not trying to dissuade you from finishing school, by the way. But yeah, it was different. It was really cool to see that. And even now with Verizon, the linemen, the network splicers, um, they're climbing poles and doing this other stuff, and I'm trying to learn that. So again, people that have been doing this for 30 years, and it's very insightful getting to know them, getting to know some of their families in some cases. So that for me, it's just the people experiences and those making those connections with them.
Thank you for that. And anyone to answer, did you know what you wanted to do with your degree once you graduated or even before? Did anyone have an idea or was set on what exactly they were going to do?
I wasn't quite set on what I wanted to do. I mean, I was fortunate enough. I had a full-time consulting job through the master's program, as well as after, and then going back and pursuing my PhD now. I think it opens up a few more doors in terms of academia and research, or going back into consulting. So probably not the most helpful of answers because I'm still trying to figure out like what I want to be when I grow up after I graduate from the program. But I think the nice thing about the master's program is that it does equip you with so many practical skills, not only in at least the industrial hygiene program, everything you need to know about industrial hygiene, but as you go through kind of the epidemiology and the biostatistics coursework as well, all of those data analysis and softwares. So I think you come out of the program with really some highly marketable skill sets that can apply to many job positions and roles at different companies or organizations.
Thank you. And then the last question that we have here is, what advice do you have for those with little to no experience as they begin their public health degree or consider going back to school?
I can take this. So I was in that spot 3 years ago, and I would say speak with those who you really know and trust in a professional sense, whether that be in the public health fields or in the field that you're considering going into more specifically in the public health fields, and explain your goals and ideas and see if they potentially have any leads for you, whether that be a concentration or a potential internship opportunity, and kind of making sure you're utilizing those connections and that network is really key for someone with little to no experience. I was there, and after I spoke with the mentor, I spoke with the career coach, and kind of the ball kept rolling. And now I was at SPH for the past few years, and I would say, when you're, be sure to turn to the people who can help you when you have nowhere else to turn, because they know you, they know your transferable skills. They can help with, say, like a mock interview, setting up a portfolio, or other things that you may need. I certainly leaned into my network when I was going through a transition and didn't really have a ton of experience, and I was really grateful I did that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry, we have 2 more minutes. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna add on to that. You know, make sure to choose I know I had some friends who kind of just fell into a random capstone that they didn't particularly have an interest in. And I think it's really critical to do a capstone that interests you and has some applicability to where you want to head your career. As I said, like my capstone wasn't the typical, scientific method experiment, but I really, that was one of my favorite things that I did through the whole class, through the whole degree program. And it was like, I really love the deep dive into research. So I'm really grateful I had that opportunity.
Thank you guys for your insights on these questions. So now we're just going to turn it to our audience um, to see if they have any questions for you guys. Sarah will read questions out loud from the chat, and you can also use the raise hand feature to ask your question out loud.
Okay, so we have a two-part question first. The first question is, how important has networking been in your job search? I understand that it's becoming increasingly important, and grad school is often even recommended for this purpose.
Yeah, I mean, especially in like a market like today, I mean, networking is crucial. And so I'm kind of going back to I mentioned that American Industrial Hygiene Association. So if you are interested in industrial hygiene jobs, or there's kind of a sister organization, the American Society of Safety Professionals, ASSP, getting to join those organizations and make your networks, joining different local sections to see who are the IH or safety professionals around the New York City metro area. And there may not be positions available necessarily at the time of when you're talking to any given individual at their organization. But if they know your interests and different experiences or research projects that you've been involved with, when an opportunity does come up, they might have you in mind for something like that. So the more that you're talking with people, getting your name out there, getting your interests out there, the better in terms of future career opportunities.
Okay, and the second aspect of the question was if you worked during grad school, how did you balance any competing workloads and priorities?
Try
I
to do your homework at work.
Yeah, I would plus one that one. Um, Definitely. Don't let your job know, obviously. Um, the other thing I would suggest is get a calendar, set some time. Like it's gonna be difficult. It's not definitely not easy. Know that you might not have the best social life during this time, but I mean, for me, it was just planning ahead, looking at those syllabus, and trying to figure out when I can fit some time for not only your schoolwork, your normal job, and obviously still want to have some social connection. So when you graduate, you have somebody to talk to, obviously. But yeah, it's difficult, but planning is definitely the biggest thing I would suggest. Find quiet spaces. I usually didn't like studying or doing work at home. Just there was too many things going on and bad habits. I would turn on the TV. I would go to the so I found I can go to the library or I would go to like CUNY. So I don't know if that's still the case, but before you could go to any CUNY library, even though you're only in the SPH. So I used to go to the one in Brooklyn since that was closest to me. They were open on weekends, so I would go there. Other students are there, so you get into the habit of just hitting the books, and not deviating for that. So that's what helped me.
I would also say to go off of that point that Carlos made, being open, I think, with your employer is really big. So I was totally transparent that I was, working as well as doing this program and kind of just let them know about like certain busy periods or when I was doing field work, it was a little difficult because I did it in the summer condensed session. So I had a lot more hours per week requirement. Which got a little crazy because I was doing one of the 4-week courses, working, and then also doing my fieldwork hours. So that was, as Carlos mentioned, you really have to plan, get a calendar, because it can get pretty crazy pretty quick. But I think being transparent with not only your workplace, because my at least New York State was really awesome with me and kind of allowed me to move around my hours sometimes when I was in a busy season, as well as being honest with your professors. And if something comes up, more likely than not, especially if you're making yourself known to them, they're happy to work with you. And so yeah, that was something that I found really helpful.
Because my supervisor had done the exact same program as me, I didn't even ask. He specifically told me I could do my homework at work, which was amazing. That helped a lot. But yeah, it's still, yeah, scheduling and finding a quiet space, I also agree with.
Okay, so thank you for those. What's one lesson you've learned in your career that you wish every public health student could hear?
I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but my lesson was engaging with your professional network early and often. So I think if that's one thing that you get out of this panel, just the importance of that network, just because our field is also so small that you're going to be running into kind of the same people again and again as they move around different organizations and companies or different academic settings as well. So again, building that professional network, all that you can, and leveraging it at every step of the way.
I would also say just being open to change. Public health is very broad. If you ask, you can go online and there's so many things you can be doing. So like even for myself, when I started, I wanted to do research. Obviously did not end up there. I still do some research internally, like figuring out what our our injury trends and things along those lines. So it's still some of that, but not in the academic sense. So I would just be open to change just because you have an idea right now of what you want to do, that can change after you take an epic class or I don't know, or some other elective. So just be open to it and take a risk. Like I didn't know what Amazon was like in terms of safety at that time, but I took it. Um, there's definitely a learning curve, not only in the corporate world and the culture of that company, but also for me, during that time, there was obviously the pandemic going on, so every day was different, not only in the company, but from a government regulation standpoint. So, at the beginning, I was like unsure if that's what I wanted to do at that time, but I just kept pushing through, getting to know new coworkers, not only in the EHS field, but also in the operations, HR, engineering, um, partnering up with them, learning what they do, right? We have some right now in my current job with Verizon. We have people in the EHS that started in HR, that started engineering, that started in operations. So there's so many ways that life can go through. So I would just say back to what I said in the beginning, being open to change.
And one last thing is that, like know at CUNY, it's mostly a lot of people do work full time, and so a lot of people, get to class and want to get immediately home, which is understandable. I was one of those people, but I do think it is really helpful of getting to know your own classmates, not just networking with like your professors or like, you know, out like at your own organization or whatever, but like networking with your own peer group, I think is pretty critical. And like, not rather than just showing up to class and immediately bolting, like trying to get to know the people at your own level, I think is really helpful too.
Okay, thank you. And what were your first steps or priorities after graduating?
I can answer that. For me was finding something stable that would help me pay my bills, to be honest, right? Because after uh, 2 years of graduate school and I mean, yeah, graduate school and a couple years of undergrad, you definitely have some bills that pile up. So I'll be honest, trying to find a stable job that can help me pay down some of those bills. But not only that, also helped me with my that app that works with my social life, and hopefully found a career that I wanted to do. So fortunately, I was able to find that, and I'm still in that field for at my current job.
Yeah, so after graduating, I definitely wanted to, or knew that I wanted to pursue taking the CIH exam. But after going through I was in the MS program for 3 years part-time and working full-time during it. I definitely wanted to take a little bit of a step back and just get some breathing room. So I think that's super important. Also, if possible for you in your case, just to give yourself a little bit of breathing room after finishing the program. It's a lot to do. And so obviously we're all going to have kind of these next steps and looking for jobs and taking certification exams and everything like that. But definitely give yourself a little bit of a breathing room if you can, just to reset a bit, and then can prioritize from there.
Okay, thank you. What advice do you have for students who are unsure how to turn their passion into a clear career path?
I can go. I think just hearing stories like these and attending panels like these is really helpful. It's sometimes if you're just kind of going to a lecture or reading a paper, it's easy to see like where someone is at that point in their career and kind of see all of their accolades and the certifications that they've gotten and training that they've gone through. But being able to hear their stories of how they got from point A to B, or even Z if they're further on in their career. I think it's really helpful. So for everyone kind of joining today to kind of get a sense of other people's trajectories and paths, I think that's helpful in order to really then go back and say, okay, I know I'm really passionate about this topic or this piece of environmental health or public health, and kind of can draw on different stories and experiences that you've heard of to really kind of set your own path from there.
To build on that, I also think it's really okay to admit when you like feel as though you might need help and you're not really sure where to turn. And that's, I feel like the Office of Career Services is a really awesome resource when you're at a point of you're kind of lost and trying to figure out your clear path, because no one's path is the same. And so speaking with professionals who deal with career transitions and who have assisted countless other students and other professionals in a way so that they can get from their job that they might not love to a career that they find super fulfilling is a great way to start. As I previously mentioned, that's how I started, and I'm really glad I did, because if I didn't think to ask for help, I still might be at my first job, which I really didn't love, and feel unfulfilled with my career. And we work too long to feel unfulfilled and go to your job every day and you don't like it. So it's best to get ahead of things while you can, and really tap into that network as we've been talking about all evening.
Okay, thank you. Was the job search after graduation difficult or stressful? If not, what do you think made it as feasible as it was for you?
I don't think it was, well, I changed jobs twice while I was doing the degree. It took me 3 years to graduate. So it was more stressful to change jobs in the middle of writing my final capstone project. Um, but since then, it is really, really hard to get a job out there. And I've had a lot of stress associated with, trying to find a job, and then the self-doubt and low self-esteem of trying to figure out what you want to do with yourself. Like Mike said earlier, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. My path has been really circuitous and winding, and you can see mistakes in hindsight that you couldn't see, or see different paths you would have preferred to have taken. I think part of it is just you have to just apply to a ton of stuff. And I also, yeah, well, when I worked for DEP initially, I was like, okay, I don't think I want to continue as a civil servant, but now working for the mayor's office, like, it's just there are a lot of difficulties with working for government, but I feel like civil service is where I'm meant to be, and it finally does feel good, like I'm on the right path. And it really was just like searching city research scientists and putting a million job applications out there, and that's all it is, like brute force strength.
We have time for one more question. Does anybody want to talk about your fieldwork and capstone projects and how it connects to your current or future goals, or current work or future goals?
I mean, as I said, my capstone was doing investigative work to help a legal case for workers who are exposed to PCBs. And my entire career, most of my career has been very investigation focused in various aspects. Um, and then, the ability to read scientific literature. The first time you read a scientific study, you're like, oh my God, this is so overwhelming. But then the more you do it, the more comfortable you are with it. And same goes with legalese. When I was working as an insurance adjuster for environmental and pollution claims, almost everybody who had my job was an attorney because it's all contract law and then litigation. And so once again, that was really, really scary for me. But by the end of my tenure there, I felt like I had an honorary JD. And yeah, I don't know. Like I am just really grateful for the start that my capstone gave me into all these different fields. And my entire career has been related to compliance. And these days, if I'm reading something online and it references uh, like a legal statute, it's like, okay, actually click the link to read the actual statute rather than just, okay, this is what they said. Like you can go search that deeper level and be like, this is specifically this law, and you get used to reading this stuff, and it's less scary. So I think all of that is really helpful, and my capstone involved all of that.
I can really quickly also say a little bit about that. So I think that while it would be really awesome if everyone's capstone totally fit what their future like career ambitions and everything are, I also think it's okay if that doesn't happen. I was really limited because I was a New York State employee about what capstone I could do. A lot of people choose to do internships, and I had really stringent restrictions on who I could work for given my status as a state employee and everything. So SPH was really awesome, and the EOHS department was great in connecting me with professors that needed help with research so that I could just kind of view it as an extra class instead of like having to go through the hoops of applying places and getting on staff, even as just a non-paid researcher, because I would have had issues with that. That being said, even though I'm currently not in the occupational health fields, that is what my capstone was. I personally found it really interesting, which made things awesome. And like I said, even though it doesn't really 100% the topic of policy and nail salon ventilation that I did doesn't really align with what I do at work day to day, I think the critical analysis skills that you use while completing both fieldwork and capstone really apply to any job. And I think that if you really, work with all the faculty and staff, I know Professor Grassman does an awesome job with working with everyone individually and making sure that they have a great product that they could use in a portfolio. And I think that, utilizing those connections, as I've said a bunch of times tonight, but utilizing those connections and using the analysis skills that you're gaining, either qualitatively or quantitatively, and whatever software you might use. I think that's a really great way to kind of close out your SPH career and sets you up in a really great spot for finding any job in an analysis, environmental analysis space.
Thank you guys for all the answers to the questions. So we're coming to the end of our program, and I just want to thank all of our panelists for being here with us tonight. And to close out, each panelist will give us their final thoughts. So starting with, can we start with Mike? Can you give us your final thoughts as we wrap up?
Yeah, I wanted to thank you, Dionne and Sarah, for moderating, and as well as to my fellow panelists and the office of learning to putting this on. I think it's been a great panel, and hopefully you've got something from it. But I think kind of my final thoughts here, I think public health is a challenging field to be in the best of times. We do it because we love it and are interested in it. And so at the moment when science is being attacked and trust has eroded through the pandemic in public health systems and organizations, and the job market is tough, it's really critical for each of us to just really maintain focus at this point in time and take the time that you can to really develop yourself into the best public health professional that you can be. So whether that's finding additional training, leveraging your networks, getting to know your peers and where they're at in their careers as well. So just leaning on one another at this time to get us through the next couple of years.
Emily, can you give your final thoughts as well?
Yeah, I agree with everything Mike said. It is really tough and scary out there in the realm of public health, or, and especially environmental health with a lot of regulations right now. Well, as I mentioned, my first 2 years at SPH, I was actually a student of Hunter College, and then so I guess I'm the first graduating class of SPH. But really utilize those career resources. I'm so jealous of the program that Elizabeth mentioned. I want a professional headshot. um, yeah, and like as my undergrad, I've used their alumni resources so much in the past, and they've really helped me. I'm not sure if CUNY has the same thing, but like, as an alum, they can do a resume review, or, people reach out to SPH for jobs so they can put you in contact with someone. Like they have a really helpful job bulletin. So yeah, my advice is to keep in touch with a career network. Also, I have been to one or two alum events before. One time there was one at Mr. Purple, which was a very cool bar in Lower East Side. So people should show up to those. I'll show up if you show up. And that's a great way to continue to meet people. And lastly, yeah, as I mentioned before, like I think having a GitHub or something with like little projects of like I put them on my resume. Like, okay, my capstone is a project on there, or like a little data analysis thing. Like, I think that's really, really helpful and, making you stand out. So make that portfolio, baby.
Thank you, Emily. Elizabeth, can you go next?
Yes, I can. So to quickly follow up on Emily's point, the Career Skills Academy actually does have alumni events as well. And actually, any SPH alumni is open. So they send emails out, and it's masterclasses, workshops. They just sent one the other day about resume workshop, and I did that 2 years ago. And you meet one-on-one with a professional in the public health field, and they go like line by line and really edit your whole resume. So highly recommend. I would say that, as obviously everyone has said, the current outlook in our fields might not be totally crystal clear. So I really encourage everyone to potentially consider opportunities that might not seem like the obvious path, whether that be really looking for tasks at your current company that might not be in a public health space, but maybe there are tasks that that you can contribute because you have the analysis background, or in my case, like I do GIS analysis now, and that wasn't necessarily something I did before I got this degree. So I think that really making sure that you're looking for all opportunities, even if that's not a new job, it could be a new skill set that you can then use as leverage for a potential new job. And yeah, I would say it never hurts to try. try anything. Might as well put yourself out there, and you can always pivot if it doesn't work out. A lot of us on the panel have done that, and I'm sure a lot of you are in the process of doing that as well. So that's what I would say.
Thank you. And Carlos, can you close us out with your final remarks?
Yeah, thank you. I agree with it, what everyone said. I will also add doing research on your own in terms of looking for different job postings online. That's what I've did before I even joined Verizon a few months, like a month and a half ago. Especially online, going to the job postings, looking at what they do. Like I even found Reddit posts about some of these things, like a day in the life of some of these jobs, even on YouTube. The only thing I would say, take it with a grain of salt. Obviously, people that are really happy will say the good stuff, and people that hate their job will say the bad stuff. So you gotta, I guess, take it somewhere in the middle. But definitely encourage you to research some of these job postings and figuring out, hey, this is this interesting for me? Because like I mentioned earlier, at least for me, public health is very broad. You can do a lot of different things with that, but eventually I found my niche, and been enjoying it for the last 6 years plus.
Thank you so much. Again, thank you all panelists. And on behalf of the CUNY School of Public Health and the Office of Career Services, we want to thank you all for coming out tonight. We hope the panel was insightful and encouraging, and we also look forward to having you join us for day 2 of the panel series tomorrow night. Please visit the Career Services website to learn more about the resources available for CUNY SPH students and alumni. And also, staff will remain on the Zoom room for a few minutes if you have any questions. You will also receive a post-event email on Friday with the panel recordings and contact info sheet so you can directly connect with panelists. And also, don't forget to complete your brief feedback surveys that will pop up once you leave this meeting. And have a good night, guys.